Oh, hey. Welcome to the Tendo show. Hannah, do you notice anything weird behind us?
Where are your yellow shelves?
The yellow shelves are gone. Well, they're packed away. You want to tell them why?
We're moving.
We are moving. And listen, there are so many whys and hows and whens and whats and wheres that we figured rather than dragging down our main channel about it, we'd just make a podcast trying to just put all of it out into the universe as best we can, which is to say, be forewarned, we're probably not going to do the best job of explaining all this right now, but we're going to try to make you guys a little bit aware of the reasons why we're about to make the biggest move of our lives. It's going to be a lot. I think it's going to get a little deep, so get ready for this. Are you ready?
I'm gonna have to be.
Do you have any idea what you're...
Oh, it's gonna be a lot.
It's a lot, so stick around. All right, Hannah, let's jump right into this, and let's tell everyone what we're doing, and then we'll spend another hour, or maybe two if it goes that long, on talking about the why. But tell them what we're doing.
We are moving away from Phoenix.
And it's been how would you describe the last week?
Whirlwind?
It's been a whirlwind. Now listen, we're going to have a really long conversation today about the whys and how we got to the decision of what we're doing. If you're watching and you're used to seeing yellow shelves behind us, well, guess what? That's where those yellow shelves always were. Matter of fact, you see these black marks on the wall? Before we ever had this YouTube channel or did anything like we're doing now, that used to actually be where we hung our bikes. Those are tire marks. There were hooks there. But we're moving out. That's exactly where the yellow shelves were. This table's exactly where the old table normally was. But we've spent the last week moving everything out. Now, if you're watching this the day it's posted, this is how this usually happens. Our podcast channel kind of gets the news early. So if you watch our podcast channel, you're in the know before everyone else because our main channel video will go live tomorrow and we'll say, hey, we're moving. But I don't really want to spend our main channel videos explaining all this because it's a once-a-week video and it's not really, I don't feel like it's the place for it. So What I'm going to say when that video is posted tomorrow is, hey, we're moving and we're about to show that process. We're going to go thrifting along the way or whatever. But if you want to know more about the wheres and whys and have a deeper conversation about it, I'm going to say come over to this channel. And I bet a lot of you watching this are probably going to be here because of that. But a few of you, a very select few of you, are probably going to be here before that because you do watch these as soon as they go live, which I appreciate. But there's so much to unpack with this conversation.
About packing.
There's a lot to say about packing. There's a lot to unpack about packing. But there's also a lot about why we've made this decision. And honestly, I've tried so hard knowing for a few days now that we were going to make this podcast to kind of explain our lives and stuff. I thought I could find some sort of structure in my head to really put this in and make it all make sense. But I never really found anything. So I think what we'll do is we'll take turns for 20 or 30 minutes apiece just explaining ourselves and all that stuff.
I have to talk for 30 minutes?
Well, you can talk however long you want, but before we started, you said, you told me to go first.
Yeah, I was like, you basically explain everything, and I'll just kind of chime in.
Yeah. And so feel free to chime in as I talk. If it doesn't work out that way and you just want to go back and forth on the specifics, I don't care. But I really do just have so much to say about why we're moving.
There's a lot.
A crazy amount.
Yeah. I feel like, to sum it up pretty simply, it was a huge decision that we did not take lightly, but made quickly.
Yeah, well, we did make it rather quickly. At least the final, okay, we're going to do it. It was just kind of overnight. And we will get into why. But at the same time, I think to really get into why I've decided we should move elsewhere, it's been a long time coming. And I just don't know where to start. But let me just first start off by saying right now, we're leaving and heading back to Kentucky, where I'm from. Are we going to live there permanently? We don't know. But I did go so far as to actually order a bed for us to be delivered there before we even get there. I've already talked to my brother about unpacking it because, when you order mattresses now, they come in a tiny box and they're vacuum sealed. It's
so awesome. I hope we're there whenever it actually gets, deflated.
We won't be because it takes 2 or 3 days to deflate.
He better time lapse.
Oh, you think my brother should film it? I've already talked to my brother about unpacking our mattress and stuff. And I will say, ordering and picking out a nice box frame and mattress that suits us and stuff felt like the most adult thing I've ever done.
We have never bought a proper mattress.
Not properly. The nicest mattress I ever had that was brand new, some old couple that a friend of mine knew ordered it and hated it, but they were rich AF. So they asked if that person knew if anybody that needed one, and I took it. It was like a $3,000 mattress.
Awesome. I feel like there's stories with each mattress we've owned that
and
if
they're all
we
like
told
that.
them, it'd be real. It sounds really weird, but
Yeah.
it was like completely fine.
Yeah, but we've inherited all of our mattresses brand new. We've had 3 together now. We had a roommate who ordered a brand new nice Tempur-Pedic mattress and then scooted. That's our newest mattress, which is still really good and new, but we don't have the room to transport it. So I spent about $1,000 on a mattress and box frame yesterday.
They are not cheap.
No, and I definitely, that was cheap. You
Yeah.
can go a lot more. I squeezed some pennies here and there. I really wanted a bigger mattress. I'm so big. I wanted to get a 14-inch thick, but I ended up with a 10-inch thick, and I probably am going to regret it. But I spent good money on our box frame. And hey, if you guys are regular viewers of the channel, for sure, you'll get to kind of see more of this, I think, coming up, because we'll show you when we're putting it together on our main channel. But there's just so much about why we made the decision to move. So I think I'll start with I don't want to order the importance of things, but I'll tell you how they kind of come to mind. Here's the first real thing that made me think about moving, at least going back home for a while, going back to the other side of the country. The last time we were home, this last trip we took, right before we left, there was this real strange series of events where basically I found out my grandmother had been asking for a wind chime for her yard. And she really wanted one. And I was like, what a simple request. Now, mind you, my grandmother is the woman that raised me. She's now 83 years old or so. So she's getting up there, and her health has been failing. Regardless of her age, her health has been somewhat declining for a few years. But she's still okay. She still gets around. But her being the woman that raised me in my head and stuff, I still picture her quite a bit younger. So it's such a weird experience when I do go home to see her getting old, okay? Because she's gotten old in the last 10, 15 years, and that's what I've been gone.
Yeah.
So the last time we were home, she asked for this wind chime, and I said, I got you. And I got on Amazon, and I don't know if this is going to be like a weird flex or whatever, but like I bought the nicest one, the most expensive, nicest, biggest. Like I bought the nice one, and I said, Granny, it will be here a few days after we leave, so I'll make sure my little brother's over to put it up. And it was just like there was no question in my mind. She wanted a wind chime. I'm going to get her a wind chime. But then I wasn't there to put it up. But then my brother did subsequently send me pictures of her looking at it and sitting and enjoying it, and it was just like this weird pull to like, I need more of that.
Yeah.
So it was probably the very first time that last trip home where I was like, I have to spend some more time here and with her. And so but in no way did I think, oh, we're going to move home.
Yeah.
And I think that brings up the most important part of this conversation. Not the most important part, but like the most serious thing inside of my mind. And you definitely need to speak to this, because this is where this conversation gets tricky. To us, verbally to each other and both inside of ourselves, for some reason, moving back home has always seemed like it would be a failure.
Yeah. I always pictured, that's always the thing in the back of your mind, like, oh, we're going to move to LA, and because when we moved away from home, we went directly to LA. So we're going to move to LA, and if we fail, like, if we can't make it, we can always go back home. And so every single step in our journey was, oh, we can always just go back home. Like, it's fine. So now it's like, we're going back home, but it's not because of failure. It's because of choice. And it's just this weird thing.
Yes. And that's exactly what I want to unpack here. For me specifically, now I'm not going to speak for you here in this instance, but for me specifically, my hometown, it's like widely known that you move away in your 20s and you move back in your 30s.
Yeah.
And and amongst a lot of my friends, even so, and there's too much to unpack here. Like, we don't have time for what I really feel and to explain the complications of it. But like, even amongst my friends back home, like, I'm kind of the one that quote unquote made it out. want to stretch that any further than it needs to go. I'm sure a lot of you are going to understand what I mean, but I am. There's a lot of people who know me well back home, and they're happy that I'm out here doing wild movie making stuff. You know, they're good friends, and they're really happy for me. They've always been really supportive. So like to just call those people even and say, hey, I might be moving back home, which is an important caveat here. I've pretty much explained it to no one, and do not intend to explain it to you guys that we're just moving home. That's in my head. Like we are going straight home to spend some time with my grandmother, to take care of some things there, and then maybe after the holidays at the soonest, we're going to take off and either just travel or go find somewhere else to live. And listen, we've got so much to say about that because it's like it's impossible to even really do this podcast right now because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we keep stumbling over like the conversation because we're just like,
yeah.
it's so
a lot of people are just gonna be like, so what? You're moving home, or what?
No.
But there's so many complications, and I want to try to follow a linear path here because I set out to say my grandmother is probably 50% of why we're going home because it's just important to go spend some time with her. But it's complicated because even though this is how I started out feeling this way once upon a time, about 2 weeks ago, she got put in the hospital. And I was like, I'm either just going to go home and leave you here to do work, or we were looking for a compromise for me to go home for a while and just be there to not only be around her, but also just kind of take care. She has, people taking care of her, my dad and my sister, that are completely adequate to do so, but I'm just not playing the part that I would be good at taking care of her affairs.
Yeah.
Let's just kind of leave it at that. And I feel the need to go do that. So she gets put on the hospital the same exact day that we get a letter on our door saying, we're raising your rent to $1,700. Just flat out, that's it.
Which is a lot.
Which is a lot more than we're paying. I mean, we're basically going up from $1,200 to $1,700. And how and why that happens is even more complicated, and it doesn't matter. But just know that stuff all happened on the exact same day. And we were just like, what do we do? And we pretty much came to the decision together to go up to our leasing office and say, no thanks. Peace out. As a matter of fact, we didn't get in a fight with them, but like Hannah had it was so funny how it happened. They were immediately like, well, we need 2 months notice. And we were like, Hannah was like, immediate, like I didn't even open my mouth, and she's like, no.
I walked away and I go, well, I just pulled out my Martha hat.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be clear, you weren't rude, but you were just so like.
Well, it's like my days at Lovely Bride. Whenever I worked at the bridal shop, I had to have brides come in and be like, well, I'm demanding this. And I'd be like, okay, I hear you, but that's not happening.
Yeah. So, when you have people like that in a leasing office, they're there to be between you, the tenant, and their boss. And so she, of course, got on the phone and had to ask for approval and stuff. So we got it taken care of. And like, okay, you can move out in way less time because of your situation. It was just some silly nonsense, but we were very determined that day. We're going to load up and for now move back to Kentucky. And that it was just crazy. That's what started the whirlwind, right?
Yeah.
Because then it was like, well, okay, we've got a month essentially to get out. But then my grandmother went home, and a couple days passed, and she got put back in, even more serious. And at that point, I got a little bit towards the irrational side and caused what you see here. And this was just a few days ago now, and started emptying this place out, throwing stuff away, giving stuff away. I've given a crazy amount away.
We have made the neighborhood children so happy.
Well, their parents have started coming around. I've been like, what do they like? I swear to you, one kid last night, his dad was like, oh, this is such a great story. No one asked him for anything, really. I was talking to this guy. He was like, oh, I got something out of the trash that was yours. My kid really loves it. I was like, oh, cool. What does he like? He was like, actually, he wants to be a YouTuber, and he wants to make YouTube about his favorite shows like Five Nights at Freddy's. And I said, come here.
Hold on.
And I took him to our back room and literally got him a shelf full of Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. That it was some stuff for our antique that I just took out of an antique mall, which that's a whole other can of worms. I don't even know if we'll talk about on this podcast anyways. But I gave him some stuff from Antique Mall, some stuff I had just delisted from eBay, and I was like, I was going to put this out of the trash anyways. I hope he likes it. The next day, we're working on my car, which is why I'm so dirty right now. And that guy ended up he came up and was like, you need some help, and he helped me do the most difficult part of our car repair.
Yeah, it's like we met a wonderful, lovely neighbor like the week before we leave.
Yeah, which is so strange, and there's a lot of that going around too. And there's going to be a lot of segues here because that brings up another important point about how we're moving right now and why and what and the reasoning. And I don't feel like we owe this explanation to anyone watching or anything, but a lot of me, and you kind of said this to me, a lot of us kind of wants to get this down and out for posterity's sake.
Yeah.
Because we live our life documented, and there are certain things we've been through where we went back and looked at the videos and thought, oh, it's nice to have this stamp.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot about our channel and what we're doing on YouTube that is worth talking about in this instance, because this is the biggest thing we will have ever done with this channel.
Yeah.
But we met that neighbor right before we're about to move, and that brings up another important point. We're kind of at the peak of what we're doing here right now. We're in the midst of the best we've done here in Phoenix. We're in the middle of it. Your jeans are popping off. I've been killing it at the bins. I mean, better than I've ever considered it. And it's the best bins there is. We've been to tons. But we only live here in Phoenix right now because the bins is so good.
Yeah.
So we're looking at moving back to a part of the country that isn't as good for thrifting as it is here. We're looking to just quit at the height of everything. And I want to be really honest about that, because I think there's some meaning there. Do you know what I mean? To be afraid of going home for so many years as we have been. And I feel like right now we're kind of talking to people that are super familiar with us. If you're new to our channel, welcome. Thanks for digging in. But there's a lot of people that have been watching us for a couple of years now that have heard us say things like this, talk about wanting to move, not wanting to move home and stuff. But it's so the opposite of what would have made sense a year ago.
Yeah.
So, like, how do we get into the conversation about how we make sense of that? Not that we have to or feel obligated to, but I want to, because it seems so backwards. And if you'd have said to me a year ago, you're going to move home in a year and actually kind of be excited about it, I'd have probably kicked you in the nuts.
Yeah.
And ran away. That's my purse. I don't know you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, it just doesn't. It does compute. We're going to get into reasons why I think it'll make sense to you, but where do you, how do you, like, catch them up on, like, some sliver of how this makes sense? Because, like, I'm leaving you behind right now.
Yeah, I don't know, because honestly, that is the biggest part of the move that does scare me. Is like we
don't have a Goodwill bins down the road.
Right, there's no Goodwill bins. Honestly, there's like 4 or 5 thrift stores in the town that we're actually going to be living in that aren't that great
at all.
The community isn't like super
thrifty,
vast.
resell-y.
Yeah, it's like there's not going to be a lot to choose from there. So it's like kind of stressful in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like,
well,
the location of that town is so centralized to so many very close good thrifting areas.
Yes, and that's, again, there's the perfect, and this is what I knew would happen. We talk about this, and it snakes into the next point. The last point I really wanted to make was we're leaving at the height of what we're doing, which is scary, but it is also super exciting because, and I think, again, a lot of you watching that have known and been around for a while are going to see this, we have always wanted to travel more. And here's one of the big parts of moving. Here where we've been living in Phoenix, it has allowed us to do some travel, but it certainly hasn't allowed the frequency with which we wanted to travel.
Yeah.
We said early on when we bought our first van to convert into a kind of camper, we wanted to do this every couple of weeks. We wanted to take off and go. And living here hasn't facilitated that. And, of course, a lot of it early on was finances, right? Because before we got adept at what we're doing at reselling and found the avenues we were going to resell, because we tested out a bunch of avenues, and custom clothing became a big one, and antique malls became one of the biggest. We didn't know that. We didn't know that we were going to find a good mix and then actually make money and be sustainable. So for a while, not being able to take off was just kind of like, we didn't have the money. Now we find ourselves a little bit better off, and we do have the money, or we're closer to it, but it's not that there's nowhere to go, but there's not a path for us to go do what we want exactly how we want it. And I know that sounds vague, but I'll explain it better. But what Hannah just said is kind of the best explanation. My hometown and that area that we kind of want to move to is an hour and a half from Nashville, which has 2 bins. It's a couple hours from Indianapolis, which has like 4. I don't know. If you're watching from Indianapolis, tell me, because I can't ever figure out exactly how many, but there's multiple bins locations. St. Louis has 2, which is 3.5 hours away.
I think it's only like 3.
Yeah.
Maybe just 2.5. But
it's close. It's in that kind of few hours. And then like Atlanta is only like 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's just a couple hours past Lexington. I don't know if Lexington area has a Ben's, but it's over in Indiana, and it's a good Ben's.
Yeah.
We've been to it once. I've been to it. Have
You've
you been
been
to
to it
You
once.
haven't been
I
to it
haven't.
yet, but you're going to get to.
Exactly.
Because all these things are in like a weekend's driving distance for our van, right? So we have this big gas-guzzling van that we've turned into kind of a camper, and we want to just go to the Ben's all over all the time. That's a huge part of what we wanted to do with this channel. And when we set out to make daily content, which we were doing before we did started our weekly videos, that was the idea. We were just always going to go just take off all the time, go to a Ben's here, go to a Ben's there, and that was going to be it. But finances and proximity didn't allow it, because the next closest Ben's from here, essentially, that's worth going to is probably, Vegas?
Yeah. Which is good.
And I mean worth going to. There's one in Tucson, not worth it. There's one in New Mexico, really not worth it for us. Not that I'm crapping on any of these Bins, but you guys that have watched us for a long time will know we've been to a lot of Bins on this channel, and you can see which ones we vibe at and which ones we don't.
Yeah.
There's ones that has the stuff we're looking for, and there's ones that don't. And a lot of that has to do with demographics and other things that could take its own podcast. But we both really believe and really have come to the conclusion that through moving back east somewhere, we don't know where permanently yet, but starting off as a base of operations, our hometown, my hometown, we're going to go to my hometown through the holidays at least, and then reconfigure and choose how much longer to stay, or maybe perhaps where to move towards. But we're going to stay on that side of the country and just go all over the place, go to some Bins, go stay with family here, there, do this, that, and just see what happens. That's the plan. And maybe I should have led with that, because I think a lot of people at the top of this podcast are going to be like, well, where are you going? What are you doing?
You guys are insane. You're stupid. Why are you doing that?
And it may look crazy, but there's been a lot that we've done to move and get ready for it that is like, I've been on a roller coaster where I go, are we making a mistake? And then I talk to somebody about what we're doing that we care about, and they're excited for us, and they see it as a huge step forward, or I don't know. Honestly, getting rid of a good bit of stuff has been relieving. A bit of relief, because we like collecting stuff, and there's stuff we want to always collect. But between our collections, our resale stock for this, resale stock for that, it's become a lot. And that is, I think, unless you have something else, a good segue to the next point.
Well, I don't think that I have something that's super related, but there is a thought that I had that. It is something I need to say here. I lost it for a second, but it came back.
We're going to snake around a bunch, too. If you think of something about the previous point, I've got a lot to come back to. I'm just trying to keep it moving.
But, the thing that I thought about while we were kind of in the middle of all this is whenever I went to college, my mom asked me, what do you want to do for your career or whatever? And I was like, I don't really know, but I know that I do want to move away from where I live, which was small town Missouri. I'm like, I want to live in a big city. So I decided that I was going to be a theater major, because there is literally nowhere I could do that in my area that I lived. So I was like, I have to go live in a big city if I do theater. And so now I kind of feel like we want to thrift and we want to travel to do it. Now living in a city where we have to travel, we have to go do it, is the only way that we're going to make ourselves do it. Because it's very easy to just be like, we don't need to travel. We've got 100 Goodwills here and a Ben's. Like, what do we need?
That's a perfect,
we don't need to do that.
That's a perfect cherry on top of what we're saying. We're in heaven here.
Yeah.
and it's completely warranted if you're watching going, why would you move? Because there's a lot of people watching that have been drawn to this channel because of our access to thrift stores. People can't believe how good it is, and they're right. if you want to come be the king of thrift here in Phoenix, take our place, come take it because
we'll be potentially back.
So. Oh well, that's a whole other point we'll get to in a bit. There's definitely a place for us here in Phoenix, and lots of friends that have been made, and there's so much to say about that.
Yeah.
Stick around definitely for that conversation because I've got plans for how to be here still and other places. But the segue that I wanted to take was that, all our stuff and now getting rid of some of it, and more importantly, wanting more space is another huge part of this. That $1,700 rent, you do not understand, or you might if you're from that part of the country. What you get in my hometown for $1,700 a month is nutso.
If we were like, hey, we're going to spend $1,700 a month on a place to live
it would
in
be a
Kentucky,
mansion compared to
we
this.
would be the richest people in town.
I've got family, my more successful family members that have
like, well, you
crazy.
guys are loaded.
Right. Well, I've got family members that are, doing well and paying mortgages on nice houses that are way less than that. And I'm talking nice houses. You know what I mean? So, and even still, just like what our rent was after utilities and stuff was close to 14, 15 some months. And we never really had too much trouble affording that. We hated it. It wasn't really about affording it or not. It was, it's way too much money.
Yeah.
I don't wish that on anyone, and if you're watching and you're in LA or, even
San Francisco paying $2,000 for a studio apartment.
And really, even if you're watching and you're in Phoenix, a lot of big cities right now, it's becoming regrettable because like we talked about maybe, Nashville wouldn't be bad to live in. But it's kind of the same exact rent rate as here. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not terribly great. So that's a huge part. What would be nice, and what is a possibility, though it's not at all what we're promising. What would be nice is perhaps to get a home, and I'm talking buying a home in Kentucky because it's so accessible compared to here. The market's a little crazy right now everywhere. It's hard to find houses about anywhere. I don't want to get into all that. I think a lot of people hearing us say that will be like, well, good luck, because it's hard. And it is. But I actually already have some prospects about areas and or places to potentially buy to fix up. And that opens a whole nother can of worms, because if I just started this podcast and asking you what you want to do, or in the immediate future, kind of what would you like to do, buying a fixer-up house would have been a large part of that answer, right?
Definitely.
That's something she has not shut up about. Every Instagram. I don't want to speak. You can explain to them your desire here.
I love old Victorian style homes, and I really want one, and I would love to buy one for a very cheap amount of money and then put a lot of love and restoration into it to make it my own. I think that's just such a beautiful use of my time and talent, and I'd love to learn how to do a bunch of construction stuff, and that's a great way to do it. Like, it's all just things that I love doing.
Yeah. So that's another thing I think that makes this whole conversation incredibly difficult, is that there's so much want in every one of our lives, right? There's what we desire, and then there's reality, and there's all these things. So it almost sounded like a fun exercise to sit down and have this conversation, just to wade in between those things. What's the difference between what we need to do right now and what we want to do? What I need to do is spend time with my grandmother. That's a need. It's a want too, believe me, but it is a need. It is the right thing. It is the moral thing. It is the sensible thing. It is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Now my brain goes, okay, now then what do we do on top of that? Because I'm not as much as I want to go spend time with my grandmother, there's no way I go sit in Kentucky and don't move around. Yeah. That's not who I am. That's not how I'm built. So my brain's filling in, okay, well, let's do what we need to do, and then how do we make the best of it after that? And honestly, the best thing is going to be probably weekly at first, and then maybe after a house is secured somewhere in that side of the country, every other week. The plan is to just be in a different city, to different bins, and portions of that to probably drive back this way, because there's still plenty to do here in Phoenix for us. And that's it. That's what we want. And it's so strange that potentially moving home is what we feel like facilitates that. Yeah. Does that still just to even say it just makes me go, ew?
Well, yeah. I honestly, whenever I think about you are going to be living in Kentucky, in that town that you already know, I get a little
You're saying
meh about it.
You're saying you thinking about me or us in general?
I guess just me, but
Okay.
like us in general living in your hometown again. Like we've been there, we've done that. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of like,
Oh heck,
meh.
we lived there together for 3 months once, and then 2 months again later in transitions to moving, and there was like no shot back then. But that was before we explored the world. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be really interesting to go back there and go, do we like this? And then perhaps see how quickly we run off again. And we may just. I'm open to any possibility. I mean, don't be surprised if we end up right back out west or shoot straight up to Chicago. We haven't yet settled down for kids, and there's still just maybe a bit of time before that, before we do that. And it's like, the door's open, but at the same time, I don't know. We're going home. Home's a good place to raise kids. I don't know what's coming next exactly, but I'm incredibly excited to say I am personally feeling in a better place than ever to just make it whatever I want. Whatever we do next is literally whatever we want to do.
I think honestly the biggest sigh of relief for me is that, okay, we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Because like right now, my biggest cloud over my head, I guess you could say, with living here in Phoenix was that I felt like we were just kind of in the same place doing the same thing, and it wasn't really going to move forward very easily.
I think there's an important thing to point out there. The trajectory for us was like we started this YouTube channel. At the same time, we figured out what we wanted to do, reselling clothing, toys, just stuff. COVID hit, and obviously, there's going to be a very familiar pattern to this story for almost everyone watching. Everything got messed up. And then we've all had to find our ways out of that. And I think without COVID having happened the way that it did, the tenses of that sentence was really hard. With COVID having happened. What had happened was, since COVID, we've felt a little, I don't want to say stale, but like it's been hard to figure out what to do because daily videos made sense and was the thing we were doing until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was a good while after COVID. I would say halfway between COVID and now, which is what, 8 months ago, we were like, we're not on the trajectory we wanted to be. Let's do something else. And honestly, going to weekly videos was in service of figuring out what that was.
Yeah.
And it was the right choice because I would not have had the time to come to these conclusions that we've come to. We wouldn't have had time for the conversations that it took to get here had it not been for going to daily. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot of people watching that are going to appreciate that. I know there's still plenty of people that watch our weekly videos, and their only comment every week is, I miss your daily videos. I get it. I, in a lot of regards, miss doing them. Which this is not the next segue, but it's a good side note. Definitely stick around. We're thinking about doing some stretches of daily vlogs for trips and stuff. There's definitely room to go back to a heavier flow of posts for certain reasons. Do I have any intentions currently of going back to full on daily? No. Do I ever? I will not say never, but I don't currently have those intentions.
I feel like our channel is like a simple expect a video weekly for sure. There may be more.
Yeah, that's really. I mean, I wish I could put a big sign on the front door that says that because a lot of you who've been watching for a while know Hannah has a channel. We have a gaming channel, and then we have this podcast channel, and a lot of it was a trial balloon. Like we did a Minecraft channel. I love the game and we play a lot even still. And I thought, let's see if we really want to do this. And though I found out I did enjoy it, there's no way I was editing it all to the degree I wanted to do. So the trial balloon told me it was a good try. I had fun while I did it. What's cool is the channel's established. It's got subs. It's got and if I ever get to a place where we're just killing it and other people can be involved, I can breathe new life into that Minecraft channel and we can play and have someone else do the editing. So that stuff is there. And I'm happy that it is. Or like our gaming channel. If we wanted to stream video games right now, our Rubber Duck Yellow channel is the place to do it, because you can't really do it on this channel. If I go live on Twitch right now, like 2 people watch, which you guys are the real homies. But, if we go live on that Rubber Duck Yellow channel, way more people watch. So that's our gaming channel. If we want to stream video games, that's where we're going to do it. So we've done a lot to establish, to put the footprints out of what we want to do. And, of course, another big part of that is like our live shows and our podcasts, which we haven't really ironed out, because for a while I was pretty sure when we were going to be just here, live shows were going to be through the winter, and then regular podcasts were going to be through the summer, because it's hard to do stuff in the heat here, even at home, because it's so mind-boggling. It's been working out that way, because I said, there hasn't been a podcast on this channel in a few months because we've been back to live shows on the main channel. The real thing I'm getting at, though, is when we get home, I don't know what any of that looks like. And I'm not really scared either. If we get home and live shows are difficult because of location, etc., it'll be just as easy for us for a while to fill in the space with how we want to do things, posting these podcasts on this channel.
Yeah.
And that very well may be the case, because right before we recorded this table and this gear wasn't sitting here. I actually had it all packed in one backpack. And I've basically been working really hard on having this very slim line. I mean, you can see this is the top of the backpack right here, this black backpack. I've been working really hard on having this streamlined podcast set up to take on the go.
Podcast to go.
Podcast to go, right? So we're going to, when we travel home, maybe we stop at Ivan and Monique's, get a podcast, stop at Retro Rick's, get a podcast. I would love to be able to do our live show type stuff on the road, but that's obviously harder. I mean, I can't just show up at someone's house, take over their living room, and, go live all the time. We're nowhere near big enough for that kind of aspiration, to have wild live traveling
Like,
shows.
we have 1 million subs. Can we take over your entire living? And they'll be like, yeah, sure, why not?
Well, that's not what that's funny, but that's not what I mean. I mean, like, you see YouTubers with a couple million subs doing live tours and stuff. And
yeah.
I mean, we're just astronomically so far away from something like that. But like, with my skill sets, audio, video skills and stuff, like if you've watched a couple of our live shows, you can kind of see you can kind of taste what we're capable of, preparing pre-prepared media to play in the midst of the live show and then tie back into and have themes. And, it's the kind of thing I want to do. And I want to get to where we can have a bigger audience for that. I don't want to have a bigger audience because I want to be famous. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like making the kind of money that comes with higher views on YouTube, but that's still not what drives the ultimate goal as much as I want to facilitate those larger showings of craziness,
Yeah.
And so it's so weird to think that moving back home in any way makes sense for that, because you would think the opposite. But it's like, when we were doing our live shows through the end of winter every week, crazy high production value. I would say on a couple of them, higher production value than anything we've ever done. What I thought the whole time, and this was another little nugget in my brain pushing me towards this decision, I kept thinking, like, I built that drum set suitcase, which is just off camera, hilariously taken apart. So strange looking. I just kept thinking, man, people would just kind of be so surprised if we went live and someone was here playing a violin and a guitar and, singing for transitions. And I said to Hannah after one live show, I was like, do you understand how many people I could have squeezed into this room right now if we were in Kentucky playing some music? A huge number. I mean, back home, I know people. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing to say, but it's even just like when we're out here and I'm working on this car, I don't want to start bitching about cars for hours, but like we've had such a hard time replacing the power steering pump in our bread truck. And what came down to be the problem was a stuck bolt. And there are infinite solutions for stuck bolts. We don't need to get into it, I know, but like I didn't necessarily have access to the right tools. But it's like if we're in Kentucky, there's no shortage of old dudes with shops for me to just go pull up and say, hey, Fred, chop this bolt off.
Help me.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Let me get you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And again, I don't know that we're moving back to my hometown permanently. We definitely are through the holidays. That's the only thing we know for certain. But I'm excited even for that amount of time because that infrastructure and community that we already know could could very well maybe you want to make a stay, if not longer, make a stay as that's the home base, the hub that we travel from, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many little things. Like all my family are animal people.
Mm-hmm.
This is another good little community bit. We have people here that have been so gracious to watch our cats when we leave, but leaving here has only ever afforded us the time and finances and ability, anything to just kind of leave real quick and rush right back.
Right.
And I mean, I would miss old pants if we left for a month at a time, but if we had to, the animals would barely notice we're gone because the people that would take care of them would treat them like their own.
Yeah. I like to think that Pants would miss me, but you know.
Oh, no. I mean, he would realize he misses you when you get back, but like, you know, after you're gone, but that's been another weird little stickler too. And let's just be honest about it. There's an interesting conversation here. Like, I love our cats. Don't get me wrong; they're my buddies. But like, I was very against getting them because I didn't want them to be a hindrance for travel. Because this is all everything we're talking about right now has long since been in our heads. And I'm not at all sitting here saying we're moving back home so there's someone to watch the cats. But this is just but another, like, there's just a million little notes, a million little bits on the positives of at least going back there now. So, I mean, if we get home on a Monday, I spend a couple days with Granny, then it's like, whoop, we're going to the Nashville Bins for the weekend. There's just no shortage of people to either take the cats or go check on them, or at least where we're going to be staying immediately. Like, there'll just be someone there. So
yeah,
it's just, there's, for us and for our intention to go immediately and travel and thrift, there's almost no downside.
Yeah.
Other than just getting the F out of here and cramming. What is it? How many bags is that right there behind me?
6?
Is that 6? That's 6 IKEA bags full of clothing stock. Again, feel free to chime in if you think of anything else. But like, I'm just kind of in this slipstream in my mind, and it's like there are plenty of flea markets and that kind of thing out here. And I don't just mean like our antique malls, but like
that is a good point.
Well, let me specify what I mean, and then you can talk about how you feel about it. But like, if you live out west, you think you know flea markets and swap meets, but I've been out this way for many years, and there's nothing like Kentucky and Indiana and that kind of northwest southern area for flea markets. I mean, it's nutso.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. I don't want to speak for you, but you know, you're kind of like, I want to refurbish a house, and you also have always kind of wanted to get into that scene.
Yeah, so I'm a little like torn about the flea market scene, because if anyone that knows me knows that I don't think like is the correct word. I live for sleeping. And so
I see where you're going.
In the morning at 5 a.m., whenever I have to set up all of my stock of clothes for a flea market to be done by 4 p.m., I will probably regret my decision. But until then and after then and everything.
Well, you know, if you do well and you leave with a few $1,000s, it definitely will.
I'll be like, I'm going to go take a nap on my money.
Well, at any rate, you know, again, there's a lot of this out west. Like when we lived in L.A., there's the Rose Bowl, which is a monthly, humongous flea market. I mean, a lot of states have this. And sure enough, and Nashville specifically, they have it, and it's a good one. It's not as big as the Rose Bowl, but it's good. A lot of fashion stuff.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, you know, they're just if you're hearing us talking about this, you should be able to mentally like see the avenues for content. I mean, that's, or at least for me, you don't approach things quite like that, but here's the next big segue. I want to make better videos, doing bigger things, and most importantly, doing bigger things is important, but also with more people.
Yeah.
I always have maintained any video we've ever done with others is always better. Whether it be friends that come to visit here, when we do travel and hook up with people, whatever it is, when there's more people, it's better. I feel so much better cramming my camera in other people's face than I do speaking to the camera myself. I mean, I enjoy creating that atmosphere on video and going and doing things. So there's just a million ways in which us going back home facilitates that better than staying here.
Yeah.
And I really hope as you're listening to all this, you can stack all these things on one top of one another. Because if it was just any one of these things that I've said so far, probably minus my grandmother, if it were all that other stuff, any one thing, is not enough on its own.
Right.
At all. And again, COVID happening and having this time since then to kind of ride some highs and lows, it's become clear, taking that time since COVID, that like months pass, weeks pass, and we see more of these little reasons to just not. Again, I keep saying so much talking, just saying move home, but that's not it. It's to just get out and go.
Yeah, I kind of think it's more of like we are moving to invest in people than we are to like invest in location. So it's like you know what I mean?
I think I get what you're
like
saying. Yeah.
We're going back home to be with
friends,
the opportunity of the people that we can be around.
Yeah.
Whereas here, we're here because of the location.
Yeah,
and like
definitely.
The opportunity the location brings.
Which isn't to say we haven't made friends here, and we certainly have. And to be honest with you, this goes back to what I was saying. There's a few different people who I have been growing closer to, and a very few specific people who I was just at the cusp of like growing really close to.
Yeah.
And a good example is a friend at the Bins who I befriended. Like we were talking about it the other day, and I was kind of telling. I mean, he's probably one of the first people to hear about us thinking about this. And I just kind of realized how close I'd grown to this guy, and like how much of our time we were spending together. Because I went to the Bins every day for a couple months, and I was always with this guy, digging with him, talking to him, exchanging stuff, and like I really like this guy. I really, really like him. Like I don't know how else to express this. Yeah, and to be at the height of that and just be like, all right, see ya. It seems so dumb. And there's a couple other friends here where it's very much so the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
There's a couple people who we've been friends with for a couple years and just gotten really close to. There's a couple people who we've known for a year and we're just starting to get close to. And, you know, let's be honest. Well, if you've ever lived a life like you've heard us talking about, we've moved around several states now. And there have been people all along the way. I mean, there's no reason to get into it now, but who I have stayed in contact with and who I haven't. And it's never really who you think, I think.
Yeah.
I think even back to like earliest college friends and the ones that I do talk to and don't, I think if I thought about it back then, it'd be surprising. And my intention is always to stay in contact, but you know, life happens and whatever. I don't have any worry about that with the friends here because like Phoenix is the closest place since leaving home that I've ever had that homey feeling about. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have that in LA really. I didn't have anywhere else or college town or anything, but here like it's really close.
Yeah. It does like it feels like our place and like this is where we built a life and everything. Whereas LA we experienced a life there more.
Yeah.
It's like
well, LA happened to us, and then we happened to Phoenix.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can put it that way. And that's also strange to talk about because, like, at least in the scope of discussing this with you guys have known nothing but Phoenix. You've had just these tiny baby glimpses of us in other places that we've had our, you know, like you've seen us back home a little bit and heard us talk a little bit about experiences. But let's be honest. You know nothing about where we're from, really, and so it'll be interesting. You know, it'll be interesting to go home and try to continue to do what we're doing. I mean, obviously, there's no way I go specifically back home and start any daily videos because, like,
how?
Yeah, you know what I mean? But the weekly thing is going to be easy because we already have a very dedicated plan to get there, chill out. This week, go to this Bins. That week's go to that Bins, you know. And that's very exciting. That's going to allow for a couple videos a week to be very change things up much more because, listen, there's a few of you watching who have done this. I definitely am not soliciting anyone to do this. I fear for the people who have. But there's always these people that come around to our channel, love it, jump into it, and then watch everything beginning. They start back at the beginning of the channel and watch it all. I don't know how. I don't know what time machine you have, but there are people that do this. And sometimes you know because they come in and talk about it in the Discord, which you can go join if you haven't, link below. Or my favorite one, and I think I've said this on this podcast before, but like they comment as they go, and you just see this progression. You start to realize that's what they're doing. those people who've seen it all, I think they're going to notice. You'll notice a trend if you can cram all that content into small enough time that we have just always changed everything in very dramatic ways that I honestly believe if you look at that trajectory, this shouldn't be surprising.
Yeah.
And then even furthermore, if you look at the details of our lives that we've shared along the way and include that in that observation, I really think this is very unsurprising. I think it's more surprising we haven't done it sooner.
Yeah.
Because the online personalities that we've assumed, Tendo and Hannah now, I mean, let's just be real. Anyone on the internet doing anything, they will try to be as real and authentic as they have. And honestly, I think a lot of our success has been the level of authentic that we have reached. But there's always that little bit of like, I'm turning the camera on, I've got to put on a show.
Sure.
So just in the interest of complete transparency there, I think if you've watched the show that we've put on and listened to us, I think this shouldn't be surprising.
Yeah.
I really don't. And I really think that the changes we've made and the frequency we've made them led to this. And I think that's a really funny observation to make, because I think the average viewer of this channel comes in, finds something they really love, and at least especially in those daily video days, there's really a shelf life for that, for people to burn out.
Yeah.
A couple months of just die hard, our biggest fans bought the merch, sent a package, and then a few months later just kind of fizzled out. And that's fine. I mean, YouTube is there. We all have content that we subscribe to and consume and then kind of fall away from. I could talk for hours about the stuff I used to watch that I don't watch anymore.
Yeah.
We're all growing human beings. That has definitely, the fervor of that has definitely subsided post stopping daily videos and going to weekly. That level of obsession has been it's been a good positive, I think, for that to kind of go away, because it has you. I don't know what to tell you. It's weird. It's weird when people obsess over you to the level at which our daily videos caused.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about anything crazy. I'm just saying overall, I don't read comments every single day now like I used to. That's a big part of it. I post videos on Sunday and I read them through Wednesday, and then I catch up on Sunday again.
Yeah.
And that's a nice reprieve.
Yeah. I've said like
Hold on.
16 times.
I know. And feel free to talk whenever you want, but I want to tell a brief story real quick.
Oh, Lord.
I
I'm scared. Why?
Because I just said the word reprieve. I thought of this. It's the second time I've said it this week. I was moving these shelves out, right? Because there was 20 yellow bookshelves here. We've actually disassembled them to put them in our van. But I threw away 3 or 4 of them.
Punched my microphone.
You did?
My bad.
I was like, I'm trying to fix my hair over here. I threw away about 4 of them, so I had them all on my dolly at once and was pushing them outside. This was night before last. And a car had parked right in front of the sidewalk. And there's rock on either side of the sidewalk, so there's no go for my dolly.
Oh, no.
And so I just stood there and waited for this guy to come back. I thought it was Postmates dropping off some food or what. And then it ended up just being a guy with 2 garments that looked like they'd been dry cleaned or something. And he just came out to his car. And he saw me waiting. He's like, oh, sorry. And I was like, hey, no problem. I'm not in a hurry. And he just stops. And at least his first response was kind of friendly and playful. He's like, yes, you are. He's like, yes, you are in a hurry. And I said, no, I'm just, what did I say? I said reprieve. I said, no, I'm just enjoying this short reprieve. And I swear to you, he goes, who talks like that? And gets in his car and drives away.
This dude's like, this guy's a weirdo.
I don't know what to say to you, stranger. I'm chilling. I'm not in a hurry here.
He would have been way less taken aback if he'd be like, nah, bro, I'm just chilling here. It's cool.
Yeah, I should have just said, no, man, I'm just chilling. But I meant it, though, because like there's been a couple days packing where we've just went so hard, and that was one of them.
I've just been standing here enjoying this short reprieve.
Yeah.
All right, Shakespeare.
Yeah, I don't know. Never be ashamed of using the language it was meant to be, the way it was meant to be used.
Don't apologize for being smart.
I remember. I don't know if I've ever told this story. Another short one. Just a story about my grandmother. I don't know what I was doing. I was building something, and I had my posse with me, right? My church youth group posse. You know what I'm saying?
You just went from using the word reprieve to posse.
It was my cronies. You know what I mean? I had my cronies. Do you like that better? I had my cronies with me.
Worse.
It was a couple of my friends. It was Alex and my girlfriend at the time, Tara. But we were cronies. You know, we were posse. What word do you want me to use?
My friends.
I've got some more synonyms. You want me to try some others?
My bros, my homies, my dudes, my people.
My clan.
No.
No.
Hard pass on that
You
one.
don't like that one either. I like cronies. I really do like that one.
Do you?
Yeah.
You better make sure it's not some weird word like
I
slang
know what,
word.
I know what cronies means. It is an outdated word, but it doesn't have any negative connotation. I can see where you
affiliated with gangs or anything like.
I can see how you took a little bit of a negative connotation from clan.
Well, yes,
but it's a noun, not the proper noun. I don't mean the. You know what I mean?
Let's not go there.
Okay, well, let me find a better word. My
So
home.
you and your
my
friends.
home skillets. Is this good? That was definitely at the time this happened. Would have probably been what I called them. I definitely used that word a lot in 2006.
Move on.
I want to find a word that pleases you.
No.
My tribe.
No.
No. I'm gonna find one. Okay, I'm blanking
Just
now.
move on.
Okay, my friends were standing there, and my grandmother. I had to go home, and so I had these people with me. We were going to do something, going to the movies, whatever you do with your posse, your clique, your crew, and I had to stop and get something from my grandmother. And my grandmother was like, "Hey, that thing you're working on, did you figure it out?" And I remember saying something to her, and I don't remember exactly what it was now, but like I went into a technical explanation about the thing I was working on, and I was like, I want to do this and transfer this, and I said to her, but I'm worried about the integrity of the structure. And
Okay.
I was like 16 at the time. And my friends who were with me, my posse, my crew, my homies, my home skillets, they were like, I swear to you, they were like cracking up. We were kids.
Well, yeah.
And it was this weird situation where I realized, like, especially when at that age, people just thought you were nerdy if you knew how to speak properly. Are you admitting to that? And this is a story about my grandmother, because as funny as all that was, they left to go back to the car, and then I followed them out. And my grandmother actually had this like nice little talk with me where she essentially said, don't worry about being smart. Don't let your friends, it's not.
Don't dumb yourself down just because your friends are going to make fun of you.
Which, don't get me wrong, both of those friends were rightfully intelligent on their own. We were just young and dumb, but it was such a sweet thing. Like, my grandmother always encouraged my use of language and encouraged us to use practical maths and things. Super side tangent. Funny story though. My homies, my crew. Before the comment below, what's the best word for your boys, your girls?
Well, yeah, you can't say your boys because it was obviously a girl with you. Because rude.
Nobody. No, it's not. Nobody's discriminated.
You know,
you care if I talk about my boys and you're one of them? You don't want to be one of the boys?
Well, I don't.
Sure. Okay.
I don't have the same parts as you, so no, I don't want to be a boy.
Anyways.
If I wanted to be a boy, I'd make that choice.
Well, what were you gonna say about your mom?
One of my mom's biggest pet peeves is whenever you're at the restaurant and the waitress or waiter comes up and says,
"Guys,
how you guys doing tonight?" And she's just like, "I'm not a guy."
That's like, so cantankerous. Mom, don't do that.
That one doesn't bug me at all. But
I mean, we're one of the few languages that is not more specific in a lot of ways. A lot of languages have conjugations for different words. English is lazy. Guys means guys and girls. And
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Spanish, if you think about how you address things with, certain parts of speech, like
compadres. There's a good word.
Well, a lot of the times the masculine version of the word includes girls, and that's just the written rule. And so, why are we now? We're talking about languages. My crew, my homies,
your compadres,
my compadres. But anyways, that was I think a good story, because like my grandmother raised me, and I've got to go. Here's a really important thing. I want to go home and spoil her. I want to almost get on her nerves. You understand this? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she wants me to come home. She cries sometimes when I talk to her and says, I wish I was there. And I tell her, I've said this to her a bunch. This is the kind of relationship we have. I've been like, no, you don't. I'm going to get on your nerves. she's going to have to tell me to stop hanging wind chimes in her yard. You know what I mean? Like, I have a problem. I can't help myself. I'm going to see the things she likes at the thrift store, and I'm going to annoy her with them. It's going to be good.
Annoy her with love.
Yeah, so basically the real story is going to go is like I'm going to come home for a minute and just be like Santa Claus, like, presents, okay, bye. Not that giving people things has anything to do really with what we're doing, but like I do want to spoil her and spend time with her and I don't know, buy her some nice things. It's really hard to get her to tell you what she wants. Like she didn't tell me she wanted a wind chime. She didn't. Actually, it was a really funny story about someone else getting her a wind chime that even when I heard that, I was like, and also I have kind of a good visual memory for this kind of thing. So I remember exactly where the wind chime hung and what kind of wind chime it was and what it looked like. And I actually remember when she got it and stuff when I was younger, but I know that a windstorm blew it down. So it was like, I was just the right one to know exactly what she wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I perhaps in some ways, and I think I can clarify something I said earlier. You know how I said earlier, there's just, I need to do my part in that family unit to take care of her. That's it. I probably, because of my level of observation and things like this, I basically paid way more attention to her, I think, than anyone else did. And in these kinds of ways. Not like people neglected her. I'm not at all suggesting anything bad, but just like I want to go home and do her some good with what years she does have left. So whatever happens next, whether we live there specifically long term or somewhere nearby, whatever we do next is almost certainly, I don't want to say anything with certainty because we did mean it when we said we don't know what we're doing, but I'm pretty certain with a pretty high level, with a pretty high degree of certainty, I think whatever we do next will certainly facilitate us always being around there when we need to.
Yeah.
Whether we stay there permanently or not, which I think is a nice segue into the next thought that I had that I kind of hinted towards earlier in the conversation. There's a couple ways in which I've alluded to what I want to say next. Firstly, there's a certain way in which we're going to be able to do things in a much cooler way if our audience continues to grow. We're hoping this move and buying a house and or houses to thrift for, revamp, that's one small portion. If the growth comes that we want, we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to do bigger shows. We'll be able to do some of these things. I really want to do some more stuff with other content creators. The people I do know, I've already said things to them. Like, I would love to like make really weird content. A buddy of ours that was in town for our main channel video we'll be posting tomorrow, I was telling him I wanted to rent a house, an Airbnb in big cities and do thrifting and make videos with those people. And his first response was exactly what I was thinking. He was like, what did he say? He said something. I was like, close. He said like thrift house,
like
basically,
thrift house,
like thrift house. Like it just sounds like he was basically saying, you should do a show like The Real World on MTV.
Yeah.
And I was like, exactly, thrift house. You know what I mean? And I've talked about huge grandeur ideas like this before on the channel and had no ability to facilitate them, only hopes and dreams. But this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to make a few more friends doing content, and at least once a year, a couple times a year, pick a place, whether it be Phoenix, and just say, if the channel facilitated it, if we grew enough that the financial stability was there, I would love to just pay for a house for people to come do that. But, in the meantime, if not, like let's 4 or 5 thrift channel type people get together, split an Airbnb for a week or two, and just thrift the bins together every day for the sake of content, first and foremost, and then secondly, to continue to, make the money. I only put that caveat in there because so many times when people watch us thrift with other people, their biggest concern is always like too much competition. And
well, yeah.
But we have always put way more emphasis on content. I don't know what to tell you. I could care less about making money off of thrifting stuff. It is a necessary evil for me, really. Content is what I really like doing. But yeah, that's another small thing that I think moving is going to facilitate. Just we could go home and pay for a house and do an Airbnb once a month for a week with the money we save in rent if we wanted to do that. Of course, that actually, the reality is with the finances we're going to be saving from this move, though, it's definitely way more moving towards that money's way more for hopefully buying a house soon.
Yeah.
I mean, because that brings up another point. The level of things we've done behind the scenes, I think, which maybe surprise a few. I mean, we've been working on our credit. We've been just working on being adults, really, now that we've moved from daily to weekly videos. And we didn't know, but it was pretty much in preparation for a big move like this. So, Zoom?
Hello.
We didn't have that before, did we? I wish I could zoom in on one person. That'd be way better. But really, let's be honest here for a second. Now that we've kind of put out there what we're doing and the why, how do you really feel about it? Like what? Like I know I always kind of bring things down to percentages, but like what percentage realistically excited and scared and what are you?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a mix of feelings. There is definitely a lot of unknown, which is not something I do well with.
Yeah.
I like knowing what's ahead and everything. And there's a big percentage of me that's kind of mourning the loss of the things that I did have planned ahead for here.
Okay. Here
So,
specifically.
Yeah, like I had, the
That's
next
interesting.
month or two in my head of like what's going on. And
Like
now
what?
that's, I don't know, just like
'Cause I know
flea
now
markets that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Because
there
now that you
was-
say that, like that makes sense. I think I had plans too that we're not going to do.
I was starting to buy more furniture because we were going to turn one of our flea market or one of our antique mall booths into furniture instead of toys. And so that was a big plan that I'm no longer able to do. There's, just my jeans process, the things that I needed to do with that, the ideas of things that I wanted to make, the videos I wanted to make coming up and everything. It's not necessarily that those things are things that I can't do now. It's things that I need to
that you can't do here.
I can't do here, and I have
did.
to
We-
kind of
We bought a big load of furniture that we just gave away and or donated.
yeah.
Because it's kind of funny to think. I mean, 2.5 weeks ago, that was our next big move, really.
Yeah, that was what we were working on.
Yeah, this winter we were going to do furniture hard, which luckily we're driving the bread truck home and stuff, and I wouldn't be working this hard on it if we weren't, because we're going to get there, and I think there's a lot of ways in which, obviously, furniture is popular everywhere, but it's a lot harder to get inside our hometown. So for the immediate future, for paying immediate bills, like, we're going to be stacked just buying furniture along the way and of our travels and bringing it back to our hometown to pawn off.
That's another thing that's going to be very unknown as well, is like I don't know what the market there wants. Like if I open up a dish clothes booth like I had here, is that going to go over well in Owensboro, Kentucky?
It's only more scary, right? Because we're doing better than ever in our booths here.
Yeah. It's like I'd like to get to that level of success.
And it seems unattainable specifically in my hometown. But that's, again, why everything's so open-ended. I mean, we could end up having antique malls in Nashville.
It's something I've definitely thought of, and I'm kind of excited about maybe that idea.
Yeah, we'll just go and looking.
Yeah.
Plus, I have a brother and nieces and nephews and stuff in Nashville, and that's just another. We're definitely going to be spending more time with them, just going to sporting events and hit an antique mall there on the way home and see what there is to possibly get into.
Yeah, and like the thing that's so cool about that area is that, here in Phoenix, we are about 5 hours away from anything that you would want to do, but that's 5 hours. That's kind of a lot.
6 hours to LA, 5.5 to
San
Vegas,
Diego.
5 to San Diego. It's probably about the same to like Denver or something, maybe a little more.
I think it's more into Denver, but
we did it once and it was too much.
It's just way too much, and so there it's like, well, I mean, an hour and a half from we're in Nashville. Like we've driven an hour and a half to go across Phoenix before.
I want to be clear. I would rather do LA, Denver, Washington, and all these things than I would Nashville, Atlanta, Lexington,
Same.
South. What else is there? I'm kind of blanking. I mean, really, even like Louisiana. How far was the drive when we drove from my hometown to?
I want to say 10 hours to
A little less, maybe.
To
I
New
mean,
Orleans.
It wasn't like it was not doable, and even I think technically the drive from my hometown to Retro Rick's hometown is like 6 hours.
Yeah,
and which is.
little.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Rick being there is the best part, But very close second is their bins is just awesome, you know,
Fire.
super, super awesome. So that's so much easier, at least on the cusp of things. I mean, there's all those other cities that are closer, but then what makes that area, I think, going to be a little bit better for us is that, like, then on top of the immediately close stuff like Nashville, we then still have just as many awesome cities that were just as far as Vegas is from here.
Right. It's
LA
just
is
so
from
many
here.
more options.
Yeah, and that's such a huge part. Like, so,
Yeah.
like I said, my grandmother's half of it. The other half is like nieces and nephews and opportunity to travel. I mean, that's the big reasons why I'm ready for this change. And then I think if I had to pick a next biggest reason, it's just literally change for the sake of change.
Yeah.
And I think that part is probably the part that is, a lot of people are going to listen to everything I just said for the past hour and 10 minutes or so. That if you don't understand that about us, I think a lot of what we're saying could sound scary, maybe a little bit borderline irrational, or maybe full on irrational. I don't know. I don't know how I sound. You'll have to judge for yourself. But for me, and what I was making a point about earlier when it comes to how often our channel has just changed overnight for no reason, like, that's just me. I don't like sameness. I don't like being stale. The moment I get tired of doing something, I want to never do it again. That's my personality.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to reawaken a little bit of my creativity that's started to kind of snooze. And I'm excited about that. Matter of fact, like, I was already getting this way before we made this decision together, and I started saving. I started kind of working a little too hard to just save an extra little bitty sliver of money to buy a new camera, just because that's usually a good way for me to, like, coax myself back into shooting bigger, better stuff, just to upgrade a camera and fall in love with it for a while. Now we're going to use that money I saved to move. That's not a big deal, but, like, it's weird how all my energy started funneling towards this anyways. I was funneling myself towards change and shaking things up. And here we are doing it. So
Yeah.
I think maybe a few more things to clarify that I, again, probably should have said at the top of the podcast. But, like, we're packed up. I mean, you see some junk behind us, but, like, those bags of clothes there that are ahead of us, I'm actually going to probably, in this podcast, upload it and go pack those. And then everything else that's in this room, and we are kind of still surrounded by a lot of stuff, is like, it's all going to start getting packed in level of importance. And then when
Yeah.
the van's done, I'm going to give it all to a neighbor.
Yeah. I mean, when I told my mom we were moving, she was like, what are you going to do with all your stuff? How are you going to get everything home? Are you going to get another U-Haul? And I was just like, well, no, we're going to take this opportunity to kind of, like, slim down and kind of refresh everything.
Yeah.
I realize that I have a tendency to keep things just because. You know, like, I have so many dishes. We have, like, 40 plates for 2 people. That's a lot. But it's like I have 2 full sets of plates because I bought a set of plates whenever we first moved here, and then I bought another set of plates that I actually like. And then I didn't get rid of the old ones because it's like, well, I mean, we'll use plates. And there have been times where we have used all the plates because I didn't do dishes in a timely manner. So,
Yeah.
but, you know, just paring down things is going to be really nice.
It has been nice, and especially since, like, I've just given away so much stuff, and so many kids in our neighborhood are just, like, having an early Christmas. I mean, that might sound like an exaggeration, but, like, seriously, we packed the best of the best stuff from our antique malls in the van kind of first, because there's only one way we're going to get back to the other side of the country and make money immediately, and that's selling some of that stuff. But, you know, the stuff that was, like, good condition but not worthy of the trash can, but not worth taking on a trip, like, it's been given away. So I am being propelled forward with the packing specifically with that thought. Well, A, getting rid of stuff now is going to make the trip easier, but B, like, there's some stuff I'm excited to have back home. Like, I've always had aspirations of having a workshop and working on stuff, and it was never easy here because of the dollar value, the dollar per square footage that you get with rental properties here sucks.
Yeah.
There's no room for a workshop. So, you know, all my tools are making the trip, and I can't wait to get back home and have better access to work on stuff.
The only thing that I'm, like, worried about packing is that I really have a lot of clothes for for our business. You know, the clothes for selling and the jeans I have for my custom work. Like, I'm not getting rid of any of it.
Did you say you've packed about 10 bags and you have at least that many left?
Yeah.
That's
And that's just like this stack over here that you see is stuff that is listed. So
Oh, that's like Depop stuff.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
if you buy a piece of clothing on my page right now,
Oh, you
I'm
gotta go
digging
dig it
through
out?
that stuff.
Well, that's funny. One of my things on my to-do list today is to go put all my eBay listings in one box. They're all on one shelf right now anyways, but I got to get rid of the shelf and put them in a box.
Yeah.
I wish I should have just like had a fire sale of everything, because most of the stuff I have listed is like okay and would go if I lower the price.
To do that, but Depop has changed its algorithm so much
Yeah.
that if you make a listing like announcing something, nobody sees
Well,
it, and it's really annoying.
pro tip if you're into Depop, little reseller corner pro tip with Tendo here. Depop no longer pushes people towards like your page. You know, they built it originally to be like Instagram, so you would browse people's pages and your feed would be
Yeah.
filled with people. It's just not working that way. It's not working like social media now that Etsy's bought it and started tweaking things.
Yeah.
It still does in some ways, but like nobody's just coming to your page to check on your stuff. So
No, I've got 43,000 followers on my page, and I get 3 likes on items
Yeah.
if I'm lucky.
I mean,
Like,
it's
no
all-
one sees it.
it's always been a little like that because it's not really a straightforward one-to-one interaction. What do you call this in social media? I'm not going to get into a technical social media explanation, but like it's just different. It's not bad. It's still worth trying if you want to sell some clothing you have laying around. But
Oh yeah, it still works great.
used to you'd put up like a half off everything sign
Yeah,
and
people would be like, "Let
people
me
would go
check out
nuts.
your page."
Yeah, just not so much anymore. But that's okay because now we're going to get back home with more stock and.
Yeah.
There's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to sell it. Well, I don't know how to put a button on this because I know there's a lot more to be said. I know a lot of you are going to have questions. I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions that come about our antique malls, like what are you going to do? And what
guess
did you
that
do
is-
even? And I mean, tomorrow's video that's going to go live, I think I showed maybe just a fraction of moving out, but let's be honest. The fraction of the last week that got on video is just a tiny sliver. It just
Yeah.
we didn't have time. We had work because we had a hard out time. We needed to get out here to get back and take care of some things. I didn't film a lot, but if you're majorly worried about things, I hope we touched on a lot of the important things. I know people would ask about cats, antique malls, and stuff like that. But if you got any more questions, definitely ask because I don't know. I hang on to your thought. I know you're about to say something, but I want to say this before I forget. I don't know if we're going to be able to go straight home and get back to our live shows. I kind of mentioned this earlier, or if it's going to be podcasts. But we're we like making this kind of content. So one way or another, it'll come. So if you've got questions about it, certainly drop them below, and we'll talk about them in the next podcast or something. But what were you going to say?
I guess a good like little wrap up thing would be like what are immediate plans whenever we get back. So
As
like,
soon as we get there,
we get there, we are going to we'll
well-
unpack and we'll probably check out some antique mall,
well,
that kind of thing.
because we're going to be getting there prime time for Christmas selling, we better get there and open a toy mall at least just immediately.
Yeah.
With my Lego tables and stuff, and do a few months of that at least, and if it works out, keep it. That's probably priority number one. The place we're going to be staying immediately, it is my grandmother's house, but she has a whole half of her house that's literally been uninhabited for quite some number of years.
Because your grandma's house is kind of like two
Well-
like small houses.
It
together.
is actually. It was previously divided completely into 3 or 4 living spaces. One of the larger General Electric GE plants in the country was in my hometown of Owensboro, Kentucky, and when my grandmother actually first started living there, she rented it from her aunt. Her aunt rented it to her parents because her aunt rented the house into several spaces to people that worked at that GE plant. And through a series of events, she ended up inheriting said house from said aunt, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of American history with that GE plant. And they still, up until I lived there, had a presence in town. But I don't know if they do or if they do to what capacity. But I'm saying all this to you because that it is a very large house. It's a very 1800s, house. I don't even think it has drywall. It has like plasterboard. it's in need of some love, and so we're gonna go and probably pay rent to stay there, but also just fix it up some. I'm pretty sure I'm immediately going to empty the place out and replace the carpet. Just flat out pay for it and get that taken care of.
That could definitely get some as they would say, ghosts out.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it'll
just refresh.
Yeah, it'll benefit us. It'll benefit the equity my grandmother may have in the house. So that's definitely an immediate plan. I'd love to put my brand new bed that I just bought, that I talked about earlier, on some brand new carpet. And there's probably another list of little chores that I know there's stuff my grandmother needs done that I would just be better suited because of my hauling capacity, my van, and just other stuff like that. You'll probably see me doing some chores for my grandmother immediately on our next video.
That is something I'm really excited about because every time that we go home, she does have kind of like, oh, I wish that you would be here because kind of need you to do this, or I wish someone would do this and I know you would, that kind of thing.
I wouldn't mind to do it. It's not even that the other people in her life, my siblings and parents, wouldn't do these things, but there really is some aspect of she doesn't want to bother too many people with stuff, but I've just always made it clear to bother me. Yeah, and so very much so we're gonna go home here's a great example. She's always loved walking out into her backyard and sitting on her swing and stuff.
Yeah.
But now because of her limited mobility, it's very difficult to do that. So she actually just walks out and just sits right on the porch, the back porch. Well, she has a front porch that is I'll just have to show you guys on camera when we get there because it's lovely. It's huge, and her front porch is lovely, screened in. Mm-hmm. But because that half of her house is not currently being used, it's kind of storage. It's not a good setup for her with her limited mobility to go to that front porch, nor is there a swing on it and a place for her to be right now.
Right.
So I think if she wants to, I haven't really talked to her about it, but if she wants this to happen, I'm going to go just change up everything to where she has just the most easy access to that area. Yeah. And then we can also, hang out with her there and stuff too.
Give it some paint, give it some love, make her feel really comfortable out there.
Paint it, move the swing, put some potted plants. I don't know. It might be starting to get too cold for some of that when we get there, but we're definitely going to get some of it done. I don't know what else, though. That's definitely the stuff I've thought about recently. Yeah. But also our van needs a little bit more love, and there's 1,000 ways in which fixing that van up at home is going to be easier than it was here. So there's that, too. But I don't know. I'm trying not to think too far ahead because the thing that overwhelms me right now actually isn't even getting out of here. I'm actually overwhelmed by getting there and getting unloaded and in any way getting settled in.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of us that's are we going to stay? If so, for how long? So what do we do with some of this stuff that might be more permanent? I don't know. Because I've got, how many video games do we have? Close to 4,000 loaded up in boxes, And that's always been our backdrop for our live shows and for our game room. And, maybe this will be a good opportunity to pare down some of it. There's definitely a good portion of it I can't see myself getting rid of. I mean, when I packed my stuff when I packed my stuff up, I packed it up in order of importance. And, of course, a lot of my video game stuff went in first. So I don't know. Figuring that stuff out is probably number one. Do I put it in storage? I took a lot of my bookcases. Do we put it back up somewhere? I don't know. I think ask me that question again once we've been there for a month or a week, couple weeks, and I'll probably have a better answer because if we get there and hate everything about it, we're just going to scoot. But I'm not expecting to. I'm not expecting to just hate it.
No, I think it's going to be really great for definitely a little bit. I don't know how long that bit is going to be, but I think that it will be good.
Yeah.
For a little while.
Well, I agree. Do you have anything else you want to say about it? I've already solicited more questions, and the questions aren't because we need to explain ourselves, but I know that our brains are so scattered right now. There's just no way to touch everything. I touched the major things that I thought about leading up to today that I knew I just wanted to put into words, but I know there's a lot more.
We kind of talked about our nervousness with it, our things that we've thought through that definitely seem crazy. I wonder, the people who are in the comments that are going to go, well, why would you do that? Because of this. And I'll be like, well, we didn't talk about that. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, I've honestly been sitting here trying really hard to articulate these things well, but at the same time, most of the back of my brain's been thinking about finishing work, replacing the power steering pump on our van.
I'm so tired too.
Yeah,
We've been working, moving stuff, and getting to bed in the wee hours, waking up in the early hours.
Well, we're on the second day in a row of like working on the van until daylight's gone, and then coming back inside and packing.
Yeah.
And honestly, we'd probably be done packing if our power steering pump hadn't went out. But there it is. It's time to move your bread truck, which is going to move everything you own across country. Power steering pump's out. And this is not a car that you want to drive with a power steering pump out.
It's too heavy. No.
Our smart car doesn't have a power steering pump.
Right.
It's just small enough you can handle it. Not so much for the bed truck. I had to drive it a little bit, and it's just like, it sucks.
It doesn't look like fun sitting there watching you do it. I'm like, I don't think I should even try.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a little bit nervous to get off here and see what the audio sounds like on this video, because have you noticed this whole time how bouncy the sound is?
Yeah, it's very echoey in here.
There used to be thousands of video games and lots of shelves.
One thing that I've definitely thought of, like, the pants and Momo have definitely known something is up.
Oh yeah, they know that we're being weird.
Like Pants usually sleeps with us on the bed once, maybe twice a week.
When he feels like it.
He has been incredibly attentive. He is sleeping with between the two of us every single night, just like
he's
worried.
afraid we're leaving him. He really is. I mean, he's going to find out we're not, and he's going to spend a couple hours and quite a few hours in a car, and then he's going to be in a brand new place.
Happy about.
Yeah, and they're going to be okay. They're tough cats, and we've had to, when we take them in cars in the past, like, they're very resilient about it. But there's probably plenty of people watching that have had to travel long distance with cats. I mean, we've all been through it. But
that's going to be my job. You get to take all the stuff.
Yeah,
I get to take the cats.
I'm driving everything but the cats. You're literally going to have cats, and I think our clothes in your smart car. Well, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I usually, when we explore these kind of deeper thoughts, the hope is that, like, you know, not really trying to influence anyone, but I usually hope it inspires a conversation. So I'd love to hear about any of your biggest moving experiences down in the comments below, or even better, over in our Discord. There's probably going to be a pretty good conversation over in the Discord because of this, because, you know, this is big. This is about, like I said, the biggest thing we've done. So comment below. Tell us about your biggest move, your biggest U-Haul experience or something, because we lucked out not having to do that, having our bread truck. I'd say the luckiest part of everything happening right now is that we have this bread truck, because it's saving us a lot. But that's it, guys. And if you did watch this before you watched our regular channel video, definitely go watch it next, and you'll see a lot more moving shenanigans. But thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, peace out.